Last week we were thinking about why the Lord put such a high premium on discipleship. We have seen a number of reasons for it. And I hope you went through your notes and found your own conclusions that God discipleship is indeed very, very important. Today we wanted to continue in that certain line, but we wanted to look the perspective that a believer must have if he is to become a disciple. Now, anything you want to do in this world, there is a perspective. A farmer has a perspective of life. A carpenter's perspective will not be the same. You are engineering students, some of you, most of you. Your perspective is not the perspective of a medical student, because he will be handling human lives. You will be handling more things that make human lives, better, some way, materials and other things. So there is a difference in our perspective, in our outlook on life. The basic philosophy, if you want to call it that way, you can say the basic philosophy behind discipleship. Last week in closing, we talked about the disciples being the salt of the earth, and the light of the world and all that. And the Lord said a statement that if the salt will lose its saltiness, wherewith it shall be salted. Salt, they say that very seldom loses saltiness, because saltiness is the basic character of salt. But for any reason, if it loses it, then the only thing you can do is to throw it away, because it's not good. And then salt does not lose, but it loses. How? When the salt crystal is covered with dirt and mud and all, it loses. And it happens to Christians also. We are salt, but sometimes we are covered with worldliness, the lust of the flesh and lust, pride of life and lust of the eyes, things that are related with our over-attachment to the things of the world, cover this pure crystal of disciple. And then it is good only for throwing it out, for people to walk over it. It's not good for anything. And that, I think, has happened to Christendom already. You walk to a Hindu's home or a Muslim's home and, you say that Christianity is better than their religion, they will not agree to it, because, you live in their neighborhood, they have observed your life, they don't see any difference between the Christian on the left and the Muslim on the right, or the other way around. There's no difference. Both study in the same institution, work in the same office, buy vegetables and groceries from the same shop. Their children play together. The only difference there is one goes to temple, the other goes to church. One goes to mosque, the other goes to church. One takes Quran for reading, the other takes the Bible, or the other takes Bhagavad Gita. That's the only difference. They don't see any difference in life, the values of life, nothing. When a marriage proposal comes, the Christian will be asking the same questions the Hindu will be asking. What's the education? What's the color? What's the complexion? What's the employment? How much money is going to come? What is this? What is that? The same thing. They are also asking the same thing. What's the difference? Very little difference. Very little difference. So unless we change our perspective of life, almost it's impossible to become a disciple of the Lord. There is a definite philosophy that the Lord has required from the disciples. The Lord has been training the disciples for 3 years in establishing this philosophy in their basic mind, in their thinking. A fish will always be thinking of swimming. Doesn't have to think of swimming. It's natural. A bird, it doesn't think about flying today. How will I fly? Are my wings ready? What should I do? Aerodynamics and all these things. It's not thinking about it. It's just natural. But Christianity is not a natural religion. It's a supernatural religion. It does not happen. When we try to live Christianity naturally, we live like the Hindu or the Muslim. Hinduism is more a natural religion. Islam, even I won't say it's not supernatural or natural, it is abnormal. Yes. So we cannot live successfully as a Christian unless we have this supernatural perspective, because it's a supernatural life we are living on the earth. And this supernatural perspective we don't have. This is the problem. We train our children from childhood on, not with that perspective. This week we had some company at home, and they had a 4-year-old baby, boy. So the mother was kind of teaching in the morning and asking the question, A4, so boy said apple, and B for ball. C for cat, D for dog. But that's a natural perspective. What the child is supposed to say is A for Abba Father, B for Bible, C for Christ, D for deity, F for Father in heaven, and G for God. Don't we have words for these letters? But you go and ask 100, children in 100 families, A4. The child will always say A4. That's a natural perspective. It's in little things, very, very insignificant things we say that measures justly what is our perspective in life. We have changed. We give our children the natural perspective that everybody else is giving. So at one point we just tell them, you are a sinner, Jesus died for you. You believe that? Yeah, you believe, then you will go to heaven. Yeah. At certain age, others will be saying, you have to do good works for all the bad things you do, then only you can get moksha. Right. That determines. That does not make very much so. Our children will say, yeah, I believe that, I believe that. That's not, it's a change in our perspectives. So salt is good, but if the salt will lose its saltiness, then it is not good for anything. This is a truth that we needed to acknowledge with. So we wanted to ask ourselves, are we really salt? Is the saltiness there? People who taste us, how they tasted the saltiness in our life. This question we have it. So attachment to the world only will create worldliness in us. You cannot be attached to the world and to Christ. Attachment to the world is detachment from Christ. You have to be detached from the world and to be attached to Christ. Most Christians are trying to, keep one foot in the world and the other foot in Christ. How can you successfully carry on your Christian life? Being attached to the world, you cannot be attached to Christ also. But yet that is a norm today. Who is a good Christian? One who studies very well, get an A plus or at least a B average in everything that he does, and get a good job and a good marriage. Again, good means what? Good marriage. And that's all. Then at a certain age, before they get into teenage, the parents expect them to accept Jesus Christ as a Savior, because they think that will save a lot of money for them also. Otherwise children have to buy cigarettes and drugs and all the other things. These things are expensive, you know. So if a child gets saved, it's financially good. So we encourage, you know. Then again, we don't want anybody to go hell, our children. So get saved. That's what it is. That's what it is. Will anybody, for example, in a marriage proposal ask how many souls you have won? What percentage of your money you give for the Lord's work? How do you use your holidays? What do you do? How many hours you pray? What book did you read today from the Bible? Or what other Christian book these days you are reading? What's your outlook on life? What do you want to achieve in your life? Now, nobody will ask these questions. But if anybody asks, marriage will not take place. It's impossible. You know, the person who asks us to remain single for the rest of his life. You know, others will say that he is crazy, some mental problem with him. Or if the girls won't ask, if they ask, definitely she will stay in her home. But are they important questions? Is any of those questions wrong question? Then we don't ask, we don't even think of somebody asking a question like that when a marriage proposal comes. Why? Because that is not normal Christianity. The normal Christianity is, you know, where do you work? How long you have been working there? Your promotion chances there, you know. Or some may not ask boldly how much money you get, but they will find it out. And some may even ask. They will ask all that. None of those questions have a Christian perspective. So discipleship means a discipleship perspective in life. So believers are attached to the world and they are, I will say, detached to Jesus Christ. We just say that we are in Christ and all. I don't know, you know. Theologically I know what that means, but practically, are we in Christ? Are we in Christ practically? If you are in a bus, where will you go? Where the bus will go, right? If you are in Christ, where will you be going? In your everyday movements, you will be going where Christ would be going. Could you take Christ everywhere you are going? Ask Christ to be, you know, participate to everything you do. Will Christ be interested to come and sit with you all day in what you are doing? Then Christ will end up will be just like you and me will end up. So we will have another humankind, human Christ. You know. Of course he is human, but he is divine and human. So attachment to the world is detachment from the Lord. So we needed to be detached from the world and to be attached to the Lord. And that's true about discipleship. A basic detachment from the lifestyle, the value system, the perspective, the outlook, the worldview, and all these things. A basic detachment from all these things is required to be a disciple. That does not happen naturally. It has to happen deliberately, voluntarily, willingly, thoughtfully. Discipleship is never a natural incident. It's a deliberate choice that we make. So what happened? Today Christianity has no taste, so everybody is walking over it. There was a time, you know, people, when slavery was there, in the early days, first century, people loved to get a Christian slave. People loved to get a Christian slave, history says. Why? They were faithful. They loved their master and family. They won't cheat. They won't steal. They won't lie. They won't fight. Today you think anybody would like to get a Christian slave? No, slavery is not for Christians, of course. But if there is, I doubt. You know, being a believer does not mean a better worker in the office. Being a believer does not mean a better doctor anymore. Being a believer does not mean a better teacher. Actually, from my own experience, I will say this: having a believer to help you at home is a liability more than having a non-believer. Because with a non-believer, if you don't like, you can fire them. With a believer, you are stuck with. You cannot just say, don't come tomorrow, because your testimony will be hampered. So and many times, that's what happens also. So Paul gave a special instruction to Christian slaves that if you happen to have a believer as your master, then you be very sensitive. Don't try to exploit. We needed to be working, for Jesus Christ in whatever position we are. So then what is the essence of a true, biblical Christian, or what is the essence of true biblical Christianity? That is the philosophy of discipleship, the true essence of true Christianity. I will say the essence of true Christianity is its Christ-likeness. Oh, such a nice word, Christ-likeness. Discipleship aims to carve from a believer the Christ model. That's what discipleship is aiming. Discipleship is aiming to carve out of this born-again Christian a true disciple who look like Jesus. That's what it is, who look like Jesus. We all know lost sinners are saved by the grace of God, and they need to grow into Christ-likeness. That's what is preached from every pulpit and all. But then we realize that it's not happening. It's not the problem with the preaching. Preaching is there on all those verses, Christ-likeness and everything is being preached, books are written, but it's not happening. Why it's not happening? People don't have that philosophy, that outlook of life. Nobody wants to be like Christ. People say, what fun is there? Being like Christ. There is no fun. During Christ's time, the people who came to him were of a different class of people. People who thought themselves as normal people, they didn't come to him. People who were outtrodden, and such people came. Few rich people came, but many of them returned, with sad faces, like the rich young ruler. Because the things that Jesus was teaching were unusual things, revolutionary things people say, but Jesus thought they were normal things he was saying. Yes. So this is a problem, Christ-likeness is not something, superficial. It is essentially Christ in the believer in such a way that the believer is less visible and Christ is more obvious to everyone. People who come across us, they must see him. Wasn't it John who said that he must increase and I must decrease? In discipleship, the individual decreases every day and Christ-likeness increases. It comes to a point where people will start talking about the fundamental change that took place in us, that we are more like now Jesus Christ. Just what happened in Antioch. Their disciples at a later point were called Christians. They were Christ carriers, Christ-like people. Believers have to be discipled, and discipleship on maturity. The certain stage at which the world will recognize. It is like conception and, birth. No. Nobody knows when the woman is conceived. Nobody knows. But as the days go by, what happens? Obvious. Then, the early days it's not very obvious, Maybe some morning sicknesses and some things, there are little difference. People may doubt, I have a doubt, but a stage comes then everybody understands. Nobody has a question about it. Yeah. Nobody has a question. But that stage has to come. A disciple is actually conceived of Christ and the Christ is growing. Didn't Paul in Corinthians said that he is, grieving and laboring until Christ is formed in them? Christ is formed in them. This whole matter of disciple making is that one. This little Christian, in his heart Christ is implanted and then nursing to grow that so that obviously he will reflect the Christ image to everybody. People who see him or her say that looks like Christ. Looks like Christ. This has to come to our life. And that's not an easy process, it's not an easy process. Christ likeness is a mental likeness to Christ. We don't look like Christ physically, we look like us. But a mental, Christ-like mental process, it's a mental nature. Yes. The transformation takes inside, not outside. The Christ and the believer, they come to a relationship that is so unique, the two cannot be separated. The two inseparable and mutually complementing, relationship that happens. Yes, that's beautiful. I liked when, not when Peter denied the Lord, but when Peter denied the Lord, and the girl said that, you are also a disciple. You say, oh, no, I'm not. But the third time the girl said, as evidence that he is a disciple, what was that? Your speech betrayed. That's what she said. That's when he began to curse because he wanted to tell her that I got another speech also with me. Yeah. The girl said that, not the Galilean slang or whatever, but there was something unique about, you associate with certain people for a long time, you start talking their language. Yes. The gracefulness with which Christ spoke. The meekness that was, expressed. And all those things, Peter, even while he was denying, he would be saying that, oh no, you think I am, well, maybe somebody like me, very mildly, like a gentleman, he was just saying it, English people say that, agree to disagree agreeably. So Peter at first was, disagreeing agreeably with that girl. But then when she just got the evidence so clear that your speech, Peter, he said, no, you haven't heard my speech really. Here comes some of the samples. And the girl may have said, no way, I am so sorry. That man's disciple cannot speak this like. So people will definitely recognize the fact that we are the disciples of the Lord. Because we have a perspective that is totally different. Most believers, subscribe to the fundamentals of faith. Oh, most believers, unless you are a liberal, then you are not a believer. They are intellectually identified with Christianity. But Christianity is very, very intellectual. But intellectualism is not Christianity. Christianity is rational, but rationalism is not Christianity. So if people are thinking that true Christianity is simply the intellectual excellence, well, they are wrong. Intellectual identity does not make a person a true Christian. He needs personal identification with Christ. That's the key. Personal identification with Christ. A man could marry a woman, and in a very short time, I think that he will start eating what she likes, the way she cooks, the way she does. From mother's favorites, he is slowly being weaned and shifted to. Yes, that happens everywhere. It doesn't happen. It's only because you cook your own food and eat, and she cooks her own food and eat. But that does not identify the man with the woman. It is when their value systems identify, the way they think, their outlook on life, outlook on money, outlook on different value systems. When that comes, That identification is what I call the personal identification. Then only the two people become similar. Eating the same kind of food or wearing the clothes that is of her taste. She likes blue color, so he started wearing blue shirt. That doesn't make any identification. They are superficial, periphery. They are not very much meaningful. So it is personal identification is very, very key. Yes. What does that mean by personal identification? Personal identification is, the total identification of the two personalities, their outlooks and value systems. They begin to think alike, they begin to feel alike, they begin to determine things the same way, their volitions, and they begin to have the same perspective, they begin to have the same value systems. And all those things, Christ wants that in His disciples. He wants a group of people who have personally identified with Christ, with His values, goals of life. Outlook on money, outlook on government, outlook on authority, outlook on women, outlook on children, outlook on family, outlook on everything. That's when a person becomes a disciple. So giving a person, a believer, this sort of an identification by a disciple maker is not an easy thing. It's a very complicated thing. Taking somebody whose value systems are diametrically opposed to his value systems, and then slowly carving out what should not be there, and then carving the image that should be there. That's very difficult. It's so easy to give a good, nice lecture, a good sermon. Yeah. Over. My responsibility is over. Exegetically I am honest to the passage, my exposition was good, illustrations were plenty, transitions were nice, and this and that, conclusion, introduction were excellent. Well, I'll get 10 out of 10 for my homiletics. That doesn't mean it has done anything to the other person. He may have been sitting there thinking something else. It's very much that's what happens. Most of the time, he is thinking about something else. Because we don't reach out to that man. We need to touch the heart and the personality of that person. So that personal identification is a total identification of all that involves to make a person. His personality, self-awareness, self-consciousness, his moral values, ethical values, all these things. Does not make we can make him more intelligent than he is, but the intelligence he will use more wisely. Yes, just like Jesus Christ has used. This is what Paul said, for me to live is Christ. We will say for me to live is for Christ. Yeah, that's what we all. For me to live is for Christ. Paul didn't say for him to live is for Christ. He said for him to live is Christ. For is equal to Christ. Yeah. Yes. The verb live is for me to live is Christ. Then how many of us have? Only in discipleship, when a person is fully discipled, he can say this equation. For me to live is Christ. Otherwise, we will say, for me to live is for Christ. I like to live for Christ. I'm trying to live for Christ. So from today's pulpits and today's books and everything is echoing this. We Christians need to live for Christ. There is not a person qualified to say the other thing. For me to live is Christ. Because nobody could boldly, honestly say, for me to live is Christ. Everybody will say that for me to live is for Christ.